Hey, and welcome to the Collective VC podcast. Today we're joined with Jake Berber. He's the founder of Prefer, who are making coffee without coffee beans. So, Jake, over to you. Tell us a little bit about Prefer for those of us who don't actually know you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ollie. Yeah, so I'm Jake, co-founder and CEO of Prefer. At Prefer, we make coffee without using coffee beans to future-proof coffee from the threat of climate change. So the reason that we're doing this is, unfortunately, around 50% of land where coffee is grown today won't be able to in the next couple of decades. And in that same time period, it's expected that demand for coffee will rise by 3 times. So what we know is the commodity of coffee today is on its way to skyrocketing in terms of price. And I don't want to live in a world where we can't afford our Americanos and lattes. So we're here to make sure coffee is always delicious, sustainable, and accessible for everyone. So the way that we do this is by using fermentation to create coffee's flavors from byproducts of food production, such as surplus bread, soy pulp, and brewer spent grain. And so after we fermented these products, we roast it and grind it up, and the end result is a ground coffee that we distribute B2B through cafes, bars, and other F&B outlets for retail.
That all sounds fantastic, but I think there isn't, the pressing question to many is how on earth does, surplus food turn itself or get turned into coffee? So I guess, how would you explain that very simply to someone who isn't scientific, for example, a child?
Yes, so to put our technology into simpler terms, I would just say that we're able to use fermentation to create flavors. That's really the core technology here. If you want to go deeper into it, there's certain starches and amino acids in the products that we use that, when introduced to specific microbes at a certain temperature, timing, and acidity in the fermentation process, you can essentially create different aroma volatiles. And so we are creating the aroma volatiles that are found in coffee. And so that's basically the core of our technology that allows us to create flavors.
Was it a long, arduous trial and error process to get the exact coffee flavors that you were looking for? Or?
Took a couple tries.
Okay.
No, our R&D process was just over a year. We tried over 1,000 different feedstock to microbe and fermentation process, different parameters.
Okay, so prior to that point, what was the sort of point in your life where you recognized that there was an issue here? And how did that lead into some of the motivations and wanting to birth a company like this?
Yeah, so I was working as an investor in the food tech space before this, and that's where I learned some of the big macro facts, like I was just stating about decreasing supply, increasing demand. But really, when we realized that this is an actual issue, once we started speaking to people in the industry, and we spoke to hundreds of different cafe owners, baristas, etc., and basically said, like, how much are you paying for coffee today? How much were you paying X amount of years ago? Do you see that the price of coffee is rising? Do you think that supply is becoming more unstable? And over and over it was yes, yes, yes. And then sort of was like, okay, if we were able to make a product that gave you the same end drinking experience that tasted just as good, if not better, and was just as cheap, if not cheaper, would you care if it was from coffee beans at all, or would you just be happy? And they were just like, if it's a good taste and a good price, like, I'd buy that. Because
Yeah.
they're getting squeezed already for margins, and they're not able to stay in business. So they're like, I don't really care where it's from. If I'm able to make the same end experience for our consumers that love coffee, they're still getting a coffee experience. They're still getting what they want. But we're able to stay in business, and they're able to maintain having an affordable product that they can choose. So yeah, that's when we committed this idea. Once we just got hundreds of different people in the industry excited about what we're working on.
And would you say that it's mainly the pressures of climate change that are really driving the problems in this industry now for the average stakeholder that you were talking to?
Yes, I would say climate change is one of them. There is a whole argument to be made about this next generation of people not wanting to take over the family business of farming. So this sort of next generation doesn't really want to hit the farms like they used to, and a couple others as well. But we really focus on the story of climate change because, as a company, we're really trying to focus on one of our core values and core missions is to make coffee more sustainably. And so by linking the story back to climate change, that's something that we're really focused on about being a more sustainable option.
So how do you embed that value, the core value of making coffee sustainably, into a company that inherently, at its core, you want to grow the company? People who get venture-backed companies, that's the expectation there is. And I guess some people listening might be just thinking, well, how do you grow a company like this and make it scalable in a way that also is good for the planet?
Yeah, so I mean, while we are really focused on sustainability, it's a bonus. It's not a value proposition. Our value proposition is that we can have a just as delicious, if not more delicious, product at just as affordable, if not cheaper. And as a bonus, it's more sustainable. That's just the bonus. But really, if you look at like the cheaper, better, faster model, we aim to be more affordable. We aim to be more delicious, and we aim to be faster. So our production takes around 48 hours, which in comparison to about 1 year of growing coffee just speeds up the process quite a bit.
I imagine lots of people are desperate me to just ask, what does it taste like?
Yeah, if you're in Singapore, I'd tell you to go one of our 15 locations, but you're not. So I've got to describe a bit about what people do say. So generally, people compare us to nutty, chocolatey. If you had to put a region or a bean on it, it would be a Brazilian Arabica. And that is our first flavor that we're starting with, because the Brazilian Arabica bean is the one that is being most threatened by climate change. And so that's the sort of gap that we're trying to fill in the market. We also find that there is a market for that specialty, fruity, like tastes like blueberries and strawberries, all that. But that's not really our market. We're looking for the everyday consumer that is starting to get priced out of the commodity of coffee, and so we're looking to reach the biggest market possible.
When I was thinking about this episode, I went and I spoke to the two people I know who like coffee the most, which is one of my friends and my mom. And I said, what would you like to know about a coffee that wasn't made with coffee beans before you drank it? And they just came back with three key areas, which was some you just touched on, the sort of depth and the range of the flavors, also the caffeine content, and finally, how healthy can it be if it's not a natural process, or it is a natural process, but it's not derived directly from coffee beans. So maybe you could speak on those three things, being caffeine, flavor, and the health aspects as well.
Sure. So yeah, caffeine is a huge bonus on our end. So we can design caffeine levels in ways that coffee beans cannot. So to put that more directly, we can design caffeine levels from 0 caffeine all the way up to as much caffeine as you want, or we can legally put into the product. And so on the decaf side of things, coffee today, traditional coffee, still has a slight bit of caffeine in it, even if it says decaf. Our coffee actually has 0 caffeine. And so it actually unlocks different customer segments, such as kids, such as pregnant women. Here in Singapore, a lot of pregnant women don't drink coffee because of the caffeine levels, even this tiny bit. And also those who are super sensitive to caffeine that still avoid decaf, they can still drink a coffee. So that's been really interesting about just actually taking out that little bit of caffeine that's still in decaf. It unlocked a whole new customer segment. And then on the other side of things, which is like more caffeine than coffee can have. So that's really exciting, because traditionally, if you want to get like a double shot in your coffee, say at name any coffee shop, you would have to buy that double shot. But in our case, we actually sell at the same exact price, no matter whether it is decaf, regular caffeine, or double caffeine. And that allows for businesses, for coffee chains, to provide this experience for an end consumer where they spend the same amount of money, but they just get the option about how much caffeine they want, rather than having to spend a little bit more. So that's something that we're really excited. We just, as of yesterday, are starting to test this, whether people want to upgrade to decaf or double caffeine using Prefer. So yeah, that's sort of where we're positioning today. A lot of it has to do with the ability to choose your caffeine level. So it's more like personalized. Health is an interesting one because we're not actually focusing on it today. We are a B2B company, and we've heard over and over and over people care about taste and price. So that's what we're focused on. Are there potential health benefits of using fermentation? Yes. Are there potential antioxidants that are found in coffee that aren't found in traditional coffee? Yes. Have we done the research to make any health claims? No. And do we plan to? Not really in the near future. But if we were going to direct to consumer, which is a potential route, we would look to be putting those studies into place and talking about all the different health benefits of it, whether it's fermentation or antioxidants, etc. Maybe even putting in some functional ingredients. Like we've gotten some requests for like putting in different vitamins or fibers, things like that. But again, today we're just focused on creating the most delicious coffee at the best price point, period. So that's sort of health. And then also on flavor side of things, We don't have a huge roadmap in terms of different flavors, just being straight. But we do have a roadmap in terms of different products that we're launching. So today, as of yesterday, we launched a new SKU. So now we're up to 3 SKUs. One of them is coffee grounds for cafes for them to use, just like they would coffee grounds in espresso machines. Operations doesn't change. 2 is a bottled oat latte. And in that bottled oat latte, we retail that through physical shops today, and such as like food quick service, as well as we'll be going through some supermarkets here this summer. And then third one is coffee concentrate. It's just like really, really strongly brewed coffee. And that we bottle and then sell that to bars. And bars can use that for espresso martinis or other coffee cocktails when they want to be more sustainable. So those are SKUs: the coffee grounds, the bottled oat latte, and the coffee concentrate. In the future, we'll be looking into coffee capsules as well. Also for different channels like hotels and more consumer-based stuff too.
And I hope if you do go into that, you'd look into a way of finding those in some sort of sustainable packaging, because I've heard they're a really key element of plastic waste nowadays.
Actually, no. So a lot of these compostable pods actually make the product taste worse.
Wow.
As I said, we're really focused on taste and price. We learned that from the previous plant-based boom and bust, people aren't going to budge on taste at all, and they're not going to pay more for a sustainable good. So we have to be amazing on taste and price, and we can't budge at all, even if it means being more sustainable with different packaging.
I wonder how that actually works. Do you think it's an issue with moisture getting into the container? I know it's a little tangent, but I am curious about that.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I've just tasted both and tasted the difference.
Oh, right. Okay. Interesting. I guess I want to take it back to health a little bit. I wasn't implying that they need to obviously be healthier, but I think coffee is one of those products that's obviously so ubiquitous, and no one really thinks to themselves, it's an unhealthy thing. Perhaps if they're taking a little bit too much caffeine or they're getting jittery or something like that. So just to ease any thoughts there, it's definitely not less healthy than traditional coffee, right?
My honest answer is we have not done any health benefits checks or anything like that. I've been drinking this every day for the last year and a half, and I'm hitting PRs in the gym. So if that's one data point.
That's nice. I like that. And I really appreciate the fact that you can get double caffeine. I have ADHD, and I think I take caffeine for a different reason to most, because simply like it just calms my brain down, and the average ADHD person can actually like go to sleep on caffeine. So I drink a lot of it just because I just really enjoy it. So the idea that I can drink less liquid and just have even more caffeine intake is actually really interesting. So I imagine the caffeine is added in a separate process to the fermentation.
Yes, it's one of the latest parts in our process, and we just basically purchase caffeine as an ingredient and then homogenize it into our grounds and then make coffee from there.
Okay, so let's bring it all the way back to you as an individual. You said you were working prior in FoodTech, but also in biotech, right? So maybe you can talk us a little bit through the chronological process there, maybe your experience at Entrepreneur first, and how you really knew you wanted to build a company and meeting a co-founder, and just walk us through that.
Yeah, I started my career working at a startup in a neuroscience role. I studied neuroscience at a school in LA, and then was recruited to join the startup in Tel Aviv. So I worked in Tel Aviv in this biotech startup. As I learned a little bit about sort of the intersection of startups and science, and I love that. I think at that company, it was quite a deep tech company, and the clinical trial was going to take a little bit longer than I wanted to wait around. I really want to find like what I can do today. Started learning more about some of at the time, I believe that the biggest issue of our generation was mental health issues, which I still do believe is a massive problem. But that's why I studied neuroscience and why I started my career in neuroscience. But after just learning a bit more about climate change, I started actually changing my thesis a bit and believing now, currently, still today, that climate change is the biggest problem of our generation. And so wanted to find a way to work on that. So after a while, I got the chance to work at a food tech venture capital fund, where I was able to work with them and talk to some amazing founders and learn about some amazing things going on in food technology. And I found that was like my niche that I really loved within climate food. And so then it was basically a great excuse to learn as much as possible. Sort of thinking in the back of my head that I wanted to start something of my own one day. So I was always on the lookout for different things to learn. And then so I moved to Singapore for school and for work. So I came to finish my MBA at NUS, which I started at Tel Aviv U. And then I also was coming to scout for startups for the venture capital fund I was working at. And while I was here, I heard about this program called Entrepreneur First. And for those that don't know at home, Entrepreneur First is sort of like a love child between Love Island and startups, where you basically go into this group of people and try to find your match on paper for who shares similar mission, similar values, but also has complementary skills to you. So that's where I met my co-founder DJ, and we came up with we shared a theory that fermentation as a technology is the only way to create a more sustainable, affordable, and delicious food system. So it was up to us to sort of figure out our product. This matched DJ's skill set because he's created a career making flavors from fermentation. If you Google the Prince of Fermentation, he'll come up all over the internet. This is what he does. And so that's when we started this, I guess, problem discovery phase, where we started speaking to a bunch of people in the industry to see if it was actually a problem that we're trying to solve. And that's when we heard that it's such a problem that people would actually buy this thing if we're able to go make it. And so that's when we got the money from EF. Then we got some grants from the government, got into a lab. We got to move out of DJ's kitchen, which we were doing R&D in for the first 6 months or so. And yeah, then we made a product that allowed us to go to market and raise the $2 million that we just did earlier this year.
Congratulations. That's a really good story. I'm curious, what was it like getting to know DJ within a cohort program? I guess is it cohort based?
Yeah. So yeah, about 50 people in each batch of the year.
Was it an impulsive decision thinking, right, this guy knows so much about this and I'm interested in food? Or really did you have to scope out some of your matching skill sets, where you were complementing and where you might be lacking a little bit? And how did that influence thinking about teams and broader sort of building a company in that way?
Yeah, we actually didn't think that far ahead at first. So it was just, we really aligned in a lot of core beliefs, core values, even down to like family values. And at the end of the day, he just seemed like someone that wouldn't point his finger at me when we were down bad, which everybody knows things are going to get down bad at certain points in this process, trying to build something from scratch. So I was just looking for someone that was going to get in the trenches with me rather than point his finger at me. And that was DJ, and it still is DJ today. And that was just like a gut feeling. After that, then we're like, okay, what are you good at? What am I good at? What can we do together? But yeah, going through EF, I mean, you kind of speed date. You meet with as many people as you can, as quickly as you can, just try and snatch up the best person. Like it's just like that. So luckily enough, DJ and I matched before the program even started. We just knew that this was sort of it. And then yeah, we just committed a few different ideas, then ended up on coffee in the end.
Are there anyone who goes into the program and then ends up not finding the right founder and just leaving?
Yeah, absolutely. I think numbers wise, I think on average, 1,000 people apply, 50 people get in, 5 teams get funded. So I mean, there's a bunch of people that try and it doesn't really work. I mean, most. So we're really lucky to have the backing from EF from day one.
That's awesome. And did they help you fill up your round, or was that really based on you when it came to fundraising? No worries if you don't answer.
EF did their job. EF did their job in introducing me to DJ. They don't promise anything else after that, and they did set us up with some investors as well. But their core business is introducing you to your co-founder, and that's what they're very good at. In terms of going to fundraise, that's on you. As a founder, you got to go out and meet investors, network, tell your story. So no matter who you raise from, they're not going to fundraise for you. It's on you to go out and do that.
I'm curious then, so what was the process of communicating this overarching vision and the sort of mission that's embedded into that to investors? Did they get it? Was it difficult? How many did you have to approach? Did you really target the specific food tech investors that you wanted? And did that include leveraging your existing network when you used to work in food tech VC?
Yeah, so I think our story was one where we zoomed up pretty large. And so we actually didn't frame ourselves as a coffee company. We're framing ourselves as a flavors company with our first product being coffee. So the end vision of Prefer is to future-proof food and beverage, period. There's many products that are being, many crops, many flavors, and many beverages that are being threatened by climate change, other than coffee, like cacao, hazelnut, vanilla, citrus, etc. So the end goal at Prefer is actually to future-proof the foods, beverages, and crops that we know and love that are being threatened by climate change by using fermentation rather than traditional agriculture to make them in a more affordable and sustainable way. That is Prefer. And so that's the story and the vision that we tried to tell. And some people bought it, others didn't. To put that in numbers, I think there's 8 investors on our cap table, probably spoke to 250. I don't even know. It's about framing that story and also showing that people want to buy it. You're actually building something that people want. I think in particular in food technology, a lot of investors have been burnt by companies telling a big story, and then people are launching and everyone goes and tries it once, doesn't really like it. They find out it's more expensive. They find out there's a ton of ingredients and process, and then they don't really make it part of their habits. So for us, we needed to tell the story about how are we making Prefer part of people's habits, and how are we actually going to be the commodity that we know today as coffee. It's not just like a sustainable option. And so, yeah, like I said, some people bought it, others don't. I buy it. And for those that believe that I buy it, they backed us.
That's really interesting. And it's funny you mentioned the sometimes going too big and leading with that final goal. I guess with the whole SPF thing, with getting imprisoned recently, there's been memes popping up. It's like Sequoia's communications, emails back and forth, wanting to build just the app for money. And it's like, I think, like you said, obviously it's you have broad and then you have like ambiguous and over ambitious. It's also about just like having those clear comms and really, really conveying that you're not just somebody who's just trying to like, pull the wool over someone's eyes, or not being super clear about the actual roadmap steps to actually get where you're ending up. So I guess leading off that, what do you think about the current scene and landscape within impact and impact startups generally, but also more specifically food tech? And would you have any advice for young people who wanted to get into this space?
Yeah, so on the first part with the current scene in food tech and in sustainability and impact, people are investing. They are just not willing to pay the price for sustainability that they once would. So, I mean, in the past, if you said you were more sustainable and you had some data to back that up, your valuation would increase because you're a sustainable company. I don't think that's happening anymore. I think that people are looking for businesses that are sustainable in terms of monetary sustainability. And then as a bonus, if you're sustainable, that's great, but it's not going to impact your valuation. So I think people need to really understand that being sustainable isn't a value proposition anymore for investors. So that's one. And then for those that are wanting to start something of their own in this space, I would say first thing first, get a co-founder. Doing this on your own would be really, really hard. I mean, DJ's been out sick for a couple weeks here and there, and it's just hard, and having someone there to bounce ideas off of, problem solve, and even just like have therapy sessions, like you need that. So get a co-founder. 2 is don't even think about a product until you really identify like a space or a problem that you'd be working on if you weren't getting paid to work on it. So for me, I love food, and I want to fight climate change. I plan to do that for the rest of my life. And so this is where I want to be. There's nothing else in the world I'd rather be doing. So whatever that is, just do that thing. And then I guess I should probably listen to my own advice on this, but just like try to remember to have fun along the way. It's really easy just to get caught up in it all. But I truly believe that if you're having fun and optimizing for learning, really great things will happen. Because if you're having fun and learning, you're going to do better work. You're doing better work. You have more fun. It's just like this amazing positive cycle. So yeah, just try and just find a co-founder. So cliche, but finding something that you love, and then just like try to remember, have fun. Wow, so soft. It's so soft to me to say that out loud, but it's truly like the things that I would share with anyone trying to do this.
How can I help, and how can maybe our audience help who's listening to this, sort of boost either the presence of Prefer, the knowledge of Prefer, or even just sort of address some of their own internal assumptions about fermented food?
I mean, in the UK, amazing if people go follow us on our socials, boost our stuff, go shout about it from the rooftop from your socials as well. That's amazing. Hopefully some of the big coffee companies in the UK will see that. And if we can get enough demand coming in, then we can get our coffee there. That's really from across the world, that'd be the greatest thing. And then in time, we will be getting to UK, to Europe. But for now, we're really focused on Asia for the next 18 months at least. There's a lot of the lemon still to squeeze here. Chinese youth are all of a sudden thinking coffee is cool. Indian youth all of a sudden think coffee is cool. There's like incredible demand growing in this region. So we're really excited to grow with this market. But yeah, there is no reason for us to not also be testing in the EU, US, etc. In a couple of years' time once we have more capacity to do so.
This kind of relates to a LinkedIn post I saw of yours recently, which was, you're not anti-coffee, but some people think you are. So maybe you could just spell out what that sort of debate looks like and where you sort of sit, because I guess a lot of the incumbents will just be like, hang on, like, come on, we've been growing coffee forever and we don't want to get, booted out of this space. So what's your response to that?
Yeah, so I think always when I walk in the room and talk about bean-free coffee company, coffee without coffee beans, people are like, screw you, I like my coffee, what are you doing? But I think that one thing that I need to be better at as a communicator is actually sharing that I'm trying to support the industry and trying to make sure that like the cafes and any coffee shops that you love can stay in business. Because right now the coffee is getting so expensive that they can't actually make margins at a price that you're willing to pay for. So like if I'm able to create a product that allows them to make margins and sell at a price where you can still buy it and have the same end coffee drinking experience, I'm trying to allow everyone to always continue to do that. I'm not trying to come in and disrupt the industry and basically put all these coffee companies out of business. That's not true. I want to support these coffee companies with more affordable and more sustainable coffee so that they can lower costs to the point where they can make money. And also we can continue to be sustainable and do our part in fighting climate change as well.
Just as a final question, I want to bring it back just quickly to how you settled on Prefer as a name for the company.
Yeah, so we at first used a technology called precision fermentation. So Prefer is just short for precision fermentation. Since then, we have pivoted away from that. We no longer use precision fermentation, but the name stuck. And it's actually been great for marketing campaigns like I prefer this coffee or like preferred beverage, stuff like that. So that's the original reason why we use it, because we were like, okay, we're using precision fermentation to make many different crops. So that will always be true. But it ended up that we use a different technology now, so it's not true anymore. So yeah, that's originally why. But now it's just a great play on words, and it passes the phone test too, where if you call someone and they're like, "What's your company called?" Prefer. It's a pretty easy one to remember. So we've stuck with it and quite happy with the name and branding so far. It's been sticky.
Nice. I've never heard of the phone test before. I feel like I should have done, but yeah, just the idea that it doesn't get forgotten or it's really difficult to pronounce or something. So yeah, I like that.
One other name that we were considering was Caldeon. So because Caldi is the name of the goat that discovered coffee, and Dionysus is like the god of fermentation or something. So we were trying to like combine it, but no one understood what we were saying. So yeah, prefer definitely stuff from that.
Yeah, and I think that sounds a little bit kind of techie or just like, I don't know. It doesn't have the same ring to it. I'd also say that I really like Prefer just because at its core, the idea of an alternative, even if it's like subconscious. And when it comes to your overarching mission of having these different options available, when people are just thinking about, having more autonomy as a consumer to make different choices and also try new things, I like the idea that Prefer not only suggests that there is an option or there will be an option, but that also inherently you are going to prefer it. So I really like that.
Awesome, man. Glad you like it. Yeah, it was a bit of a happy accident.
So yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. Cheers. Thank you so much, Jake, for offering your time. And I'll link all of Jake's socials and Prefer's socials and a little bit more about the company in the description. So if you're interested in that, please do check that out. And once again, Jake, thank you so much for your time.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for the questions.